Everybody knows that Minions is one of the greatest animated movies of all time. But do you know all the bizarre ripoffs scattered around the world based on the adventures of the little yellow beings that roam the globe looking for a villain to call Big Boss? If there's an award for the most shameless copy of Gru's Little Helpers in an animated feature film, it definitely goes to the Lemmings from Norm of the North. Released in the year 2016 and animated mostly by the Indian studio Assemblage Entertainment, the story focuses on a talking polar bear named Norm, who needs to travel to New York to stop a billionaire from building condos in the Arctic. And guess who he brings along as his loyal sidekicks on this journey? Yep, a horde of practically identical little creatures. But three of them are the main ones, looking a lot like Henry, James, and Ed from Minions and Monsters, or Kevin, Bob, and Stuart from Minions and Minions 2. The plagiarism here is so blatant that it actually gives you second-hand embarrassment. The Lemmings are furry little critters that always walk in a pack, don't speak a single real word, and communicate only through squeaks and high-pitched noises that sometimes sound like Minionese. And just like the Minions, the little animals are practically indestructible, surviving getting crushed, falling, and blowing up. It becomes very obvious that the producer's intention was to create some sort of cute mascot and rake in millions with toys worldwide. The big problem is that the animation is pretty questionable, and the story is so bland that this desperate attempt to push the new Minions ended up fading into total obscurity. Now let's talk about an animated movie funded by the Chinese giant Huayi brothers called Extinct, released in 2021, which clearly also tried to push a copy of the Minions formula for success. The whole story follows two little creatures of a prehistoric species who accidentally time travel to the future and find out that their entire race has been wiped from history. The duo's mission is to go back and try to save everyone. But what really catches your eye in the movie isn't the time travel script, but rather the bizarre design of the Flummels. The fuzzy little animals literally have a hole right in the middle of their bodies, looking exactly like colorful furry donuts. Even though the two main characters can talk, the rest of the species perfectly shares that exact same chaotic and clumsy energy of Illumination's little yellow monsters. It's the classic reverse engineering to create the perfect mascot. The producers took the idea of a bunch of goofy creatures, applied a super commercial, unusual shape to them, and crossed their fingers hoping the kids would beg their parents to buy them in stores. Despite the somewhat cute look, the Minion formula proved that it's not enough to just create a living donut to be successful if the rest of the movie doesn't hold up. Stepping away from the cute and furry creatures for a bit and diving straight into sci-fi, we have the Sino-Canadian animated film Next Gen, released in 2018 by China's Boovs and distributed worldwide by Netflix. The movie takes place in a highly technological future and shows the life of a rebellious teenage girl who teams up with a top-secret combat robot to stop the terrible plans of the CEO of the world's biggest tech company. But what really draws attention are the omnipresent and bizarre Cubots, which are basically minions made out of metal. They are little round robots, super colorful and mass-produced to serve as the population's all-purpose virtual assistants.
Even though they are made of metal instead of flesh and bone, the Cubots follow Illumination's playbook to the letter. Use a group of little creatures, all looking identical and cute. It's basically as if Apple had tried to manufacture their very own cybernetic minions. Did you think this rip-off fever would be restricted to just Chinese and Indian movies? Well, get ready to meet Grizzy and the Lemmings, an animated series made in France that was released in the year 2016 and desperately tried to create its own minions. The story focuses on a big, hulking grizzly bear named Grizzy, who just wants to have a little peace and quiet in a forest ranger's cabin in Canada, but ends up being constantly tormented by a whole tribe of little blue rodents called Lemmings, who are basically the minions of this cartoon. If you look closely, the copying of the minion style screams right in your face at all times during the scenes, since the Lemmings are tiny creatures, literally identical to one another, who absolutely don't speak a real language at all. The only catchphrase they blurt out all the time is a funny little noise that sounds like tabodi, which strongly resembles Minionese. Honestly, If you swapped the blue color of these little critters for yellow and dressed each of them in denim overalls, you'd hardly notice the difference between them and Gru's servants. The series ended up being quite successful on television and proved once again that taking a horde of identical, chaotic beings and setting them loose to destroy everything will always be a golden recipe for any animation studio.
Now, if you made it this far, surely something in this video kept you hooked until now. So we certainly deserve your subscription.
DreamWorks has always been Illumination's and Pixar's biggest rival. So of course they weren't going to sit out of this race for the perfect mascot. That's why, in 2015, they released the movie Home, introducing the world to the alien race known as Boovs. The story follows these cowardly little extraterrestrials who invade Earth to hide from their enemies. But what really grabs your attention is how the studio desperately tried to clone the competition's successful formula to cash in big time. Take a good look at their design and run through the checklist with me. Are the Boovs short and chubby? Yes. Do they all wear the same clothes? For sure. Do they speak our language in a funny and cute way? Yes. And to top it off, they follow orders blindly and always travel in a pack. They were DreamWorks' closest attempt at creating a group of cute creatures that resembled Gru's little helpers, created 5 years earlier. Even though the movie is a lot of fun, the inspiration the producers had to create their very own purple minions, even before Despicable Me 2, is simply undeniable. Except, for sure, it wasn't as good as the original version. That's a fact. And what if I told you that the biggest sci-fi and adventure franchise of all time, which is now owned by Disney, also tried to make its very own minions? Would you believe it? Well, it's the absolute truth. In the year 2017, with the release of Star Wars: The Last Jedi, we were bombarded with the presence of the adorable and bizarre Porgs. During the story, while the protagonist Rey tries to undergo her Jedi training with the old Luke Skywalker on the sacred island of Ahch-To, the ones who really stole the show on the screens were these little native birds that looked like a cross between penguins and guinea pigs.
Porgs don't speak a single real word, but just like the minions, they always hang out in little flocks, let out high-pitched squeaks, and have a design that is anatomically perfect and meticulously crafted to become the plushies you find in any toy store. Besides that, much like the minions, they are completely clumsy, to the point of accidentally killing each other, since they aren't immortal like our little yellow beings from Illumination. They were such a huge hit with the kids that they even got illustrated books and fan-made animations. But unlike the minions, the story of the Porgs doesn't hold up on its own, and they ended up fading into obscurity. Whereas the minions, well, those guys are basically eternal. Disney usually dictates all the rules of the game, but even the almighty House of Mouse realized they needed their very own chaotic mini horde. That way, totally inspired by the minions, in 2016, with the release of the acclaimed animated movie Moana, we were introduced to the fearsome, yet extremely cuddly, Kakamoras. During the epic journey across the ocean to restore the heart of Te Fiti, the Motunui princess and the demigod Maui end up crossing paths with this bizarre tribe of pint-sized pirate pygmies of the seas, who wear hollow coconuts as their clothes. And if you pay close attention to the screen, Illumination's DNA is scattered all over it. They are all tiny and identical in their base shape, don't speak a single language that's comprehensible to us, and use the strength in numbers and teamwork all the time. They act basically like a tribal, armed, and slightly more violent version of Gru's helpers, all set to decorate the shelves and turn into toys at the Disney stores. The movie's own directors have already admitted that they wanted to create a mind-blowing chase sequence, but using cute, short, and brainless little creatures. All of that with a gigantic dose of inspiration from the Minions, who were created 6 years earlier. Now let's talk about a ripoff that isn't a ripoff of our little yellow beings. Didn't get it? Take it easy, we'll explain. If you watch the animated series Rabbids Invasion, which premiered on television in 2013, the first thing that's going to scream in your head is, wow, what a ridiculous ripoff of the Minions. The entire checklist is right there. They are short, walk around in chaotic packs, have their own super annoying language focused on yelling, wah, and destroy absolutely everything in their path. But here comes the gigantic plot twist to this story. The Rabbids were actually created a few years before the Minions by the video game company Ubisoft, starring in their very first game way back in 2006. That means they showed up 4 years before the release of the first Despicable Me movie. So they aren't a copy, right? Well, the story isn't quite like that. Even though Ubisoft's Crazy Rabbits were born first, it was the resounding blockbuster success of the Minions in movie theaters that made the developer realize the potential of the pack of crazy space rabbits, and adapted the Rabbids vibe in their animated series, raking in a few millions with it. It's the classic case where the copy was so successful that the original creator had to imitate the formula so they wouldn't get left behind.
Our list is over, but you don't have to leave. We've set aside 2 videos right here on the side for you to keep having fun. Pick one, and let's go to the next one.